Hey everyone, this is Pastor Roger Cook with Red Door Ministries and Your Church MCC here in Radford. We are an LGBTQ fully affirming church with Metropolitan Community Church, MCC, and also we are the Episcopal faith-based club in Radford University that is also fully affirming and LGBTQ welcome. Our members are part of the community and allies. This is going to be an awesome conversation. I've talked with Emily over 3 different nights, and so you're going to get to see some of our thoughts, our conversation. She is driving to work in Sydney, Australia, 16-hour time difference. Started these calls 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the States, and it was 8:15 a.m. the next day in Sydney. Emily's just an amazing, awesome person. She is an advocate. She's big into social justice. She a feminist, a poet. She a deconstructionist about faith. Loves Jesus. Has some problems with organized religion. She talks a little bit about that. This is a conversation that we could have continued and continued and continued. I hope nothing else is here, that this here just whets your appetite to follow Emily on social media, learn more about her, and connect with her and encourage her. And I hope this encourages you. It sure did me. Hey, I'm so glad that you're here to join us for this next message in our barrier breaking series with Emily. Thank you so much. Where we live at, like I said, there's nothing for like transgender students. If we have homeless transgender students, there's nowhere to go, even in the state. We have to send them out of state.
Yeah. Right.
And we do a lot with hungry. We have like 1,100 or 1,200 homeless or hungry college students, not counting that our entire area, qualifies for what we call the free lunch program, because there's not enough income. I live in an area that's either super affluent because of the universities, or everyone's very low on the income scale. There's no middle class.
That's exactly the area that I worked in for about 7 years, that kind of area. And I did a lot of community development there, where we tried to use the assets of what the community had, so those who did have wealth, to work with those who didn't and those who were in need. That's kind of one of my big skill bases, is doing that. So the work that I actually did within the church was implementing that model. So we call it an asset-based community development model, but basically we try to use what's strong within a community to fix what's wrong. And so I did that for 7 years in a local community where I lived, and I transitioned this centre from a charity-based model, where you're feeding people, to a model where people were actually rebuilding their lives.
That's what I love. I love to. It's wonderful to take care of the need, but we like to fight systemic issues. So I love hearing you say that.
That's right. And so the church hired me to do that for them. So I was working for quite a large denomination in Australia called Australian Christian Churches. I worked for them for just over 3 years, and I was able to move 150 of their churches from that charity-based model to this development-based model, where basically we work together with the community. We don't see each other as separate. We see each other as together. And whatever we do based on what the community wants. And they lead it, and we just support them in doing so. But when we got to what you were just mentioning, looking at systemic issues and advocacy and how we need to speak against those and look at what the root cause issues are. I mean, 2 things in Australia that are big issues. One is the way we handle policies on refugees. We have terrible ways of handling that. And so that was an issue we discussed. And then another one was domestic and family violence. In Australia, one woman is killed a week at the hands of someone who once loved her or still does love her. And so it's a huge issue for us. But once we started to do that, it brings up a lot of things within individuals. So that ended for me with 5 very high-profile white men screaming at me in a room saying I was the problem, I was too feminist, I had too much trauma to stay in this kind of role. And it was very traumatic for me. It was like kind of whole world that was upheaved in like within a week of my life. And then I realized after I left the church, well, they actually told me that I wasn't allowed to go back there, and I had invested my life in there for 3 years. I had a little boy. And then I realized when I left my church that weekend that my marriage was the same kind of oppressive situation. And so I ripped all the band-aids off at once. Yeah. I ripped all those band-aids off at once, and I left them all at once. And so it was an extremely difficult time because I had no solid ground in my life anymore, and I didn't know how to make decisions about what was best for me because I wasn't following religion, and I'd grown up in a very fundamental religious household where what my parents taught and the way they behaved didn't correlate. Dad is an alcoholic and he drank a lot. And mum's behaviour was much more about control than it was about love. And so that was my basis of moving into my marriage and the jobs that I'd chosen. And so I've had to kind of figure out, like, who am I if I don't have these things in my life? And what do I want to do and what is still important to me? And what do I view about the universe and about spirituality? And through all that time, I've been going through my own journey of mental health. It kind of never ends, the process of deconstruction. You begin it in a very dark time, but it gets lighter, it gets better. It definitely does. I feel like I'm 2 years this week into the process, and definitely in such a better place than I was 2 years ago. I can wholeheartedly say that. Okay, hang on. I got to turn my background music off.
Oh, no problem.
Sorry.
No, that was probably my end. I think our internet went out. It's been happening a lot lately, so I put it I'm on my iPad now on my regular phone service.
Awesome. Cool. No problem.
So this is a reminder for our next call to stay. I'll do it this way.
I totally thought you were just like into what I was saying because I'm driving and I didn't see. And I was like fully giving this big speech about deconstruction, and then I'm like, oh, he's not there.
Well, the last I heard was what happened at the church with white patriarchy kind of giving you the boot, and I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah, it was a really difficult time, but I kind of feel like it helped me realize where I was supposed to be in life, because I guess I thought that, well, they told me things like, if you ever leave here, you leave God's plan for your life, and everything will turn to shit, like that's it. Yeah, that kind of thing, right?
Well, and if you've been if you was part of the faith for any length of time, most of your friends, your community is all in the faith. So when you 100%. Leave, you don't have a lot of friends or a lot of community. So it feels like they're right.
Yeah, 100%. So I walked into an excellent job with beautiful community, and so I had a different experience, and I still had a lot of friends outside the church. And so I had people around me still. But I probably laid on the floor and cried every day for about a year. Like, it was.
Oh no, I get that.
Yeah, it was still quite difficult, but I was better off than most people. I also was kind of raised by a group of women who taught me that were academics in community work, and they taught me a lot of fundamental values and truths. They didn't quite sit right with what I was taught in religion anyway, and I feel like I've always held to them. So there was a part of me that felt like I could kind of just embrace who I was, because I wasn't really, like, it was like they wanted me in the church as the cool, token, different person, but they didn't actually. And it does feel like that, because you give your everything there. And I'm just that kind of person. I just give everything of myself. And then the pastors that were the head of who I was working for, they were like my parents to me, because I've not really ever been close to my parents. My grandma raised me, but she ended her life at the end of 2018. And
I'm
so
sorry.
it was really hard. I was her carer, actually. That's kind of, I think, what started the deconstruction for me was the first person you lose to suicide in your life is the hardest, I think. And for me, that was my grandma, and I was her carer. And it was profoundly difficult for me. She lived in domestic violence her whole life, and she really struggled with mental health. And she had attempted to end her life multiple times, but that time we didn't see it coming. But she had asked God to help her that day, and as far as I think, He didn't. You know what I mean? And so that was such a big thing for me. And since then, I've had 4 friends in the same situation in their life. And
Oh my goodness.
it's a big thing over here, especially.
Well, I seen that last friend of yours that you posted.
Yeah,
about
Polo. Yeah, so Polo was the most recent one. And beautiful soul. Nobody saw it coming again. And I'll tell you, it doesn't matter if it happens to you 4 times, you still don't see it coming every time. And it was really difficult. So that's a common thing in deconstruction is I think people lose hope. Hope is a thing you have to somehow hold on to. For me, I feel like I haven't been able to lose hope. I've tried to, but every morning it comes back, you know.
It's an honor to talk to you, and just it's been wonderful. Hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Roger. Really nice to meet you. See ya. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hang on one sec. I got to turn my volume up.
There you are.
Sweet. You can hear me. How are you going?
Doing good. And how you doing? Did you have a good day yesterday?
Yeah, it was good. I'm working on a big contract at the moment. So I've got into academic work, and I'm writing courses that people then do to be qualified in the areas of community work, and mental health work. And yesterday I was finishing a contract that I'm doing for actually police officers in Australia will do if they transition to be youth workers. So it's a big contract. It's a $1.2 million contract that I'm going for. But
I see Facebook. Okay.
Yeah, I was finishing that yesterday and then teaching as well. And so normal kind of pace day for me, which is always big and busy. And then I'm doing a big PD day at the end of this week for all our staff at our college as well, around around an adult learning model. So how adults learn, but how adults learn when they have been affected by trauma, which is very different because the brain operates differently. So yes, it's a big topic I'm trying to unpack. I'm kind of using the model of recovery that I have created for mental health and implementing that as a teaching model for how adults learn. So it's kind of complicated, but so I'm working on that too. So my brain's in 500 different baskets.
That's exciting. And I felt bad yesterday for like, I was so excited about yesterday and went back and listened to some of the copy. And even when we blacked out, I could still hear a lot of what you were saying. It picked you up for a long time after that.
Good. Yeah, cool.
So it got a lot of that. And I don't want, like, if you're still up for it, I know I'm tying you up, but if you're up for it tomorrow, hopefully we'll have some other people on the call tomorrow and do it one more time. But I'm probably gonna put it all together. I mean, do tomorrow, and if anyone's here with us, it's awesome. But then even after that, put everything together and splice it up in like one conversation. It's all been awesome, Emily. And I felt bad for like asking you to, talk again about the 3 things that we need to do and talk again about this. I kind of like what we're doing and just let it kind of free flow. I think it's been great.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you think works, I'm fine to do. That's totally fine. Yeah.
I know you can't read your poetry while you're driving, but I'm a big fan of your poetry too. I think that's one of the first things. I cannot remember how we connected on Facebook, but I do.
Was it maybe through one of the groups that I posted one of my poems in?
May have been.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So poetry was one of the first things I started doing when my life kind of crumbled around me. It's like I had to get these parts of me or these thoughts of mine out, and I actually haven't written that much in a long time. I feel like my writing has become probably more academic and educational for people these days. But I feel like it had such a place in my life and quite often still speaks to me. Yeah, and I mean, I wrote one the other night about women leaving violent situations and what that was like as well. But I at that point in my life, I wrote nearly every day, and it was one of the only things that brought calmness and clarity to me. So yeah, I feel I would really like to actually compile them into a book at some point. I just don't know how to do that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would really be awesome.
Yeah, I kind of feel
one
like...
of them I've shared before.
Sorry?
Yeah. Oh, no, go ahead.
I kind of feel like it's a bit about a journey of a woman discovering her voice, you know, and I kind of see it as almost like, I would call it something like the hidden ones, you know, like the hidden parts of you that you might not even know exist at the time. Yeah. But people really seem to resonate with what I wrote, which surprised me as well.
Yeah, I've shared a couple of them. My favorite is still the one about, you know, kind of like where you leave the church. You know, I'm sorry, Jesus, if I couldn't do it, I'll walk away now. I love that poem.
Yeah, that was very confronting for me. So that was actually, so one of my best friends is still a pastor. I still have quite close friends that are Christians. Very few. They're very progressive people. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people just can't deal with when you change so dramatically for them. It's so difficult. So, but he set up an affirming church in Australia. He's in Adelaide, and he was speaking at a church in Sydney. So I went along to support him, and also I knew the people that were at that church, and I knew they were affirming, but I hadn't been to church since I left everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this process of being there and watching people sing and engage in church, and you know, all of the joking and everything that goes along, and just feeling like, wow, this used to be such a big part of my life, and I don't connect with the divine in this way anymore. And it was really confronting for me. And it was when I realized this will never again be part of my life. Like, and I think at that point I'd held some kind of hope that at some point I'd be able to walk into some kind of church community and feel like I found a place of belonging again. Like, feel like, you know, there were people that, I guess I've related to the concept of church so much, Roger, because I felt like we all are, like, I really believe humans are inherently good, but life really, you know, fucks us up. Like, it really rusts us around, and we kind of need a place where we can share human brokenness together. And I feel like the church has the potential to be that place, and always has been. But yet, for some reason, it just never happens. For political correctness, for being, we say this and we don't do this, but the fact that I think the higher up you get in leadership, the more you have to cover up the broken parts of you, and you can't engage with those anymore publicly. Like, there's this kind of false wall that goes up, creates the them and us mentality, and anything that smells like that anymore, I just kind of don't go near. And so I wrote that night. I remember I came home and I was so triggered by my experience because I'd heard, you know, all of the songs from the denomination that I'd been a part of for so long. But also, I really thought that this was probably a place that I was going to connect again, because they were affirming of gay people. That's usually a sign that they're an okay church, right? Like, I thought. And there was nothing wrong with them, Roger. There was nothing wrong with them. I just didn't feel like I belonged at all there. I didn't feel like there was any space to say, I don't think I believe any of this, but I think I'm still a good person. I think you're still a good person. I think where you find hope in the world is where you find hope. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I wrote that night. I sat with a bottle of wine on the kitchen floor, which is often what I do when I'm just needing to process something. And I just wrote that, and I just said, I'm sorry, Jesus. I really tried to make this work. And I feel like any relationship should be two-way, and I didn't find you there. Like, I didn't find you in these places I thought I would. So I'm going to put this down and walk away now. I don't think I'm ever going to pick this up again. And I think I did that night because I've never again felt like, oh, I really want to belong in part of a church. You know what I mean? I've found belonging in my life in so many other ways. But it was a confronting moment for me. Yeah.
Well, and when I read it, you know, and I'm reading it from a different place, you know, I don't see you as walking away from Jesus. I see it as walking away from the institutional church.
Well, that's what I think it was for me. I think it was me saying, I know that you say this is important to you, and you say these people are important to you, but I couldn't carry them for you. Like, I couldn't do it. You know, I just couldn't live that life and it flourished. And I feel like that's what life's supposed to be about, is flourishing.
Yeah. I really don't believe that Jesus ever expected evangelicalism to even exist. And, you know, and I think he would be appalled by what's done in his name.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah.
And just so much.
Like, you go.
Oh, no. I love hearing your opinions. Just I could go on and on. I don't know if you read or have time to read, but I'm reading Richard Rohr's, I can't tell the name of the book right now, but I get all my books mainly free from a site called Hoopla, which is here in the States, and it connects to the library, and there's hundreds and hundreds of audiobooks and Kindle books. And he's The Naked Now, and he's a Franciscan friar, and he talks about, you know, how there's so much in common with Buddhism and Christianity than most people even think. That Jesus was not dualist. It was not black and white, right or wrong, you know, my way or the highway. It wasn't that at all.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think you see that as well, the kindness in the way that he interacted with people, particularly women, in that time, and the way women were treated. And I feel like there's such a kindness about that. And I find that's what draws people still to him. And
I agree with you. That's what draws people to Jesus, not necessarily religion or church, because but definitely to Jesus, because Jesus did. I mean, Jesus lifted up and reached out to the minorities, and it was the women who supported his ministry. It was, I call Mary Magdala the first apostle, because she was the first one to witness the resurrection. And so much that stuff's downplayed. You know, me being a progressive pastor, I get looked at odd too. But the best compliment my wife ever gave me is she calls me a beautiful feminist, and I love that.
I love that. That's beautiful. That's awesome. I think there's so many stories like that. But I kind of feel like faith is more about encountering the divine however you do each day, right? And so
yes,
a lot of my work is with international students, refugees, people that are specializing basically teaching people who have experienced their own traumas how to help other people. Because you go through these massive parts of your life where you experience some kind of really big difficulty. And then you're like, I overcame that and I want to help other people do the same. But if we do that naturally, then we actually seem to trap people in cycles of dependency on us. Because we think we just need to give and give and give, but we need to help people grow and stand on their own feet and empower people. It's a very different approach. So that's what I do these days. And I feel like every single person I work with is so inherently divine and has some kind of otherness to them, because they encounter pain deeply and then they transform that pain to some kind of new life for themselves. And that's kind of what I see the resurrection as these days. You know what I mean? Some kind of encounter with our own darkness, our own brokenness. I feel like, you know, what happened to us is not our fault, but it is our responsibility to heal ourselves. Because otherwise we do tend to cut on people and bleed on people that didn't hurt us, because that's the only way we know how to behave. And so it's kind of about trying to see, like, where is God for you these days, you know? And for me, I see that all the time amongst people, in nature, in yoga. Yoga was a big thing for me, Roger, when I was
I
really
seen we
unwell.
just getting into yoga big time.
Yeah, so when I was really unwell, I did a big course in yoga, in trauma-informed yoga, and learned how to feel emotions again in my body, which I feel like religion robs you of. Because we're told we're inherently bad, so then we feel like whatever we feel must fit into that box too, and we shut that off and disassociate from our bodies and from our emotions, and that's a really dangerous way to live. It's really unhealthy for us, but it's also, when you disassociate from the bad things, but you disassociate from the good things in life too, because you're just kind of not there. And I don't know about you, Roger, but when I look back on pictures of myself from those times, it does literally look like nobody's alive within me compared to now. It's quite confronting, and I feel like that's kind of what religion does when you think that you're bad within yourself. So I had these, I guess, I just had no idea of what it felt like to be safe in my body again, or what it felt like to feel what I needed to feel. And yoga taught me all of that again. And it was a beautiful experience for me. My GP, who is amazing, he's kind of my safe place in the world. He actually paid for me to do this course, which is really expensive, in trauma-informed yoga, and it changed my life. Like, I learned how to know what things felt like when they were good, when they were not good. I learned how to trust my instincts and my gut and my intuition again. And I think that's kind of what saved me, was I learned I could trust myself, and I haven't been able to do that for so long. And that's quite a powerful thing to feel and to know again. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, it does. There's so much stuff we're talking about. I could just talk forever, Emily. I'm not lying about that.
That's fine. I'm just taking my mental health meds now, in case anyone's wondering. I always take them a bit later in the morning because they make you feel more awake for the day.
You was talking a minute ago about how, doing activity and caring activity and healing activity with others outside of a faith structure seems more effective. I agree with that, because I think a lot of times inside of faith structures, we're not sincere. We're trying to help people, but we have an agenda. Where I think
100%. Yeah. And that agenda is so toxic, because it comes from this place of, you're going to burn eternally in torment if I don't help you, and if you can't see where I'm coming from. And that is a massive responsibility on someone. So it's toxic for the Christian, because it's like, well, I feel like everyone around me is going to suffer eternal pain. I mean, if I knew that my friends today were going to die and experience that, of course I will do absolutely everything I can to try to bring them out of that. But at the same time, when you realize that's not going to happen, it brings so much freedom to your life. You're not responsible to save anyone. It's kind of just like, let's feel like what we need to feel and discover life how we need to. And sometimes that does involve sex and drugs and rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I do. And I'm sure you felt this too. Whenever you get freedom from that, I can remember the first conversations I had with people that I was able to actually listen and be a part of, and not have to plan my retort. And just, I'm a storyteller. I love to tell stories. I love how we're talking, because I love to hear stories. I love people's stories, and the freedom that came when I realized that I can just be with someone,
Yeah, you can just be here now in this present moment with another human being and encounter the beauty and the despair and the joy of life. I actually have a tattoo on my hand here. It's a cover up. I had a cross on there from, yes. And so I buried the cross. You can kind of see it still, and I like that you can see it in a whole heap of flowers. And I wrote that, Roger, across my knuckles. It needs a touch up right now, so it's a little bit like kind of covered over. But it says "Be here now."
Now, are you familiar with Ram Dass and Be Here Now?
No, what's this?
Ram Dass is a former Catholic. He's passed away now, or as they say, left the body. But he was. It was big into psychedelics and mushrooms and LSD in the '60s at former universities, and then later went on to the East and met with Maharaji and came back and formed this whole faith system that, meditation wise, I've kind of blended into my Christ. I guess I call myself a Christ leaning progressive. And that's his whole mantra is "Be here now."
Wow,
And,
I didn't even know that. That's really cool.
And
yeah.
really you can find you can probably Google and listen to most of the stuff for free. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. I will. Yeah, I will. For me, it was just kind of about that, like just being able to be present in a moment again, like you described, was so important to me. And it's just a constant reminder for me because it's right on my hand. Saying "Be here now." I'll tell you a funny story though, Roger, you'll love this. So I don't meet Christians much anymore because they don't like to talk to me. They kind of label me as like the Antichrist, and I'm fine with that because they kind of trigger my trauma a lot anyway. So I'm like, that's
cool. I understand that.
Yeah, but I'm also open to having conversations. Anyway, I was trying to help a friend out recently. He wanted to make some new friends, and I knew of a progressive church in my local community, and he had a background in religion, still believes in Jesus, but, had some tough times with the church. So I was helping him connect with them. And the pastor was a woman. So I was like, okay, I think this will be a good spot in that. And I think it is for him, but obviously not something that I feel like I can belong to. Anyway, he's like, I'm talking to this pastor's husband, and he asked me about my tattoos. And I was like, oh yeah, I said, there's two tattoos I'd never get, no matter what. I said, one is if I ever got married, which I wouldn't because I don't believe in marriage, which is another conversation. But I would never get my wedding ring tattooed, and I would never get a cross ever again. So the two tattoos I just can't agree with. And you know what he said to me? I've got both of those. And I thought, oh my God. I was like, and then I thought, this is exactly why I can't spend time around Christians anymore, because I just put my foot in my mouth all the time. And the worst bit was as well, I said, I never get a fucking cross. And I said it like that too. And then he goes, I've got a fucking cross on my back. And I was like, oh no. I was like, and I'm like, I'm just going to walk away now. And it was just like a reality for me of how different our worlds are. Because I said to him, how can you know your marriage will be forever? I said,
right.
Everybody thinks that. And I said, and you go get this tattoo. But I said, I don't believe relationships are forever. I think they're seasonal. And I said, I just don't think you getting your wedding ring tattooed on gives weight to the fact that it's a partnership of freedom, and at any point either of you could walk away and that would be okay. Because you don't actually own the other person. You just get to cherish them. And you know what I mean? It's a different kind of concept.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. But anyway, he was very much like, no, I own my wife.
Yeah, well, yeah. There used to be something in Greek I wanted tattooed on my forearm, and I still remember it. And then, I'm glad I didn't. I do have another tattoo, but it's for my son's diabetes. But what I'm getting ready to have done is get a sleeve of Sesame Street characters, because I absolutely love them. I don't know if you have them there or not, but I love Sesame Street.
Yeah, we do. Oh, that's awesome. What is it about Sesame Street for you?
Oh, I told you yesterday I got 7 kids. Currently my 2-year-old, and we don't push it towards them at all. I do not force feed them education, but just all my kids just love Sesame Street growing up. I grew up with Sesame Street, and
yeah, me too.
He's 2 years old, knows his ABCs, his colors, his shapes. Can recognize letters, uppercase, lowercase. I mean, I just love, and plus, if you're not familiar what Sesame Street does with Sesame Street communities, they have special lessons on immigration, special lessons to talk to children about their parents' addictions, physical abuse, sexual abuse. It's, any of this stuff. I'm a wealth of like just weird resources. Any of the stuff you ever want, I can send you links to everything. But yeah, that's why I love
awesome. That's really cool. I love that. That's really good.
Like in the States.
You go.
Oh, although like in the States, and it's terrible when they started putting all the immigrant children in the cages. Sesame Street came out with programming, for kids to understand. I mean, definitely not defending why, but just trying to explain to kids on their level why this happens and why that's wrong.
That's really good, hey, and so needed, because they do ask those kind of questions. I mean, my son's been asking me so much about coronavirus, for example, and like, is that, are we going to die, and all these big questions, Yeah, crazy. Sorry, I'm just putting my loopy on. I'm almost at work. I'm about 5 minutes away. Yeah, it's, this is my life, Roger. This is my life. I think if you live it.
I really appreciate your time. Like I said, if you're up for it, we'll do it one more time tomorrow. I hope to have some people with us. Even if we don't, I've got some questions. I know some people are asking, and it's great. I kind of love that we're doing it. You're just driving and answering questions. I love this.
I'm quite happy to do it anytime. Like, I drive to work every day, so I usually just listen to a podcast or music, and I'm quite happy to have a combo with you instead. So yeah, that's fine.
I work nights. I never see anybody. I love it. And so I listen to podcasts and audiobooks all night long, and I love it.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good way to live. Hey, that's good. Yeah. I was just going to say, for me, tattooing has been about kind of reclaiming my body as mine, because that's been another part of construction. I feel like I didn't feel like, particularly as a woman, and when you've experienced trauma as well, it's like you feel like your body doesn't belong to you anymore. Like, it's like you're told, your body is your partner's, and then you're told what to say and what to believe and what to speak and all of that. And I think that was really, so for me, it was kind of like, no, I have all of these images that remind me of who I am, of my story, that give me hope when I need it. And they're mine because my body is mine. It belongs to me. Like, so I have a long history in my family of suicide and domestic and family violence. And one of my tattoos, which is under my arm, says, I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. And it reminds me that even though these things are part of my story and my life, I have the choice of whether they become mine. Because for a long time, I felt like, well, so many people in my family have ended their life by suicide. And I thought, if that's just going to be where I end up. And so then I'd have a period of doubt or difficulty in my life, and I think this must be the time. Like, it must be my time now. Like, that must be what it's like. It's just like, it was this uncontrollable thing, I thought, and then I was like, no, I have choice whether that becomes my life or not. And I'm not going to let that happen. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to take control of it. And so that was, I guess, a big part of that. But yeah, tattooing for me has been about that for a long time. And it's very healing for me. And then when people meet you, they know you're a pretty authentic person when you have like a million tattoos. I've got 45 now.
Oh, how many?
45.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I've got maybe 5 or 6 more in the next month coming. You kind of just, I just feel like when something resonates with me, I'm like, let's transform that into a tattoo, and one day we'll run out of room, but that's okay. For now, we're good. Like, so it's been a really healing part of my journey, a very important part of my journey. It's funny as well, my mum was very strict growing up, and she would say, you're not allowed to draw on your arms. And I only remembered that the other day. And because I have absolutely covered my arms in tattoos, and so that must be quite confronting for her when she sees me. Funny.
But and the more we talk and the things I hear you say, Emily, I really do. And not trying to put anything into your mouth, mind, soul, or anything. I think you're so much closer to the divine than most people will ever get.
Yeah, wow, that's profound. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like what that means is, to me, is living a life where you have space, time. Time is the best gift you can give anyone.
Yes.
Is actually just sit with someone and have conversation. And I feel like Jesus did that all the time. Like, he just gave of himself. And I think that is a mark of divine, is the ability to be able to share yourself with people, and to be able to sit with people who are in pain, and to be able to provide some kind of healing balm to them. Do you know what I mean? That's what I would see. Yeah.
No, that's what you mean. Someone, most of my partners in the work I do, the ministry, the work I do in feeding our community and help fighting systemic issues, most of them are not faith-based. And one in particular, she's a very proud and loud atheist, but she hates it when I tell her she's one of the most spiritual people I know. I mean, she is one of the most spiritual people that most Christians don't act like she does, ever act like she does.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? But what's ironic is none of us are welcomed within our religious institutions anymore. We are, I guess, the people on the outside doing so much understated and underrated good work that's actually transforming lives. But we are people that, I guess, can't be controlled by others, and I think that's the difficulty.
I love that. That's your generation, the generation after you too. I just posted an article recently that hits nail on the head. Generation Z is not going to put up with church as it has been. They want to get involved. You know, they're finding the divine. They're finding purpose in what they do, not in what they're told or how they're told to act, but what they experience. I think that's beautiful.
And I think as well, if somebody tells you can't do that, then we're doing it. Because we want to know why you're telling us we can't do it. Like, we're like, you won't win a war with us by convincing us that, we will just be somehow okay. Do you know what I mean? If we just follow what you tell us. Because we're like, well, we don't feel okay as it is. So we're going to find some kind of balm for our wounds, and if you don't give it to us, we'll find it ourselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it'll be hopefully it will be as effective too, or even more effective. Hey,
I think even more so, right?
You're at work. I'm going to respect your time, let you go. I know you're at work, but this has been wonderful. It speaks to my soul, Emily. I'm just looking forward to tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Thanks, Roger. Really nice to connect with you again. See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Bye. You too.
Bye. After all
it's super nice.
Hey, there's Aaron.
Hi.
Aaron's the president of our club. I've missed you, Aaron.
Yeah, I know. It's been forever.
It's so good to see you.
My friends and I went to Build-A-Bear today.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, we have that too. How was that?
Good. My bear and I are matching.
Oh, show us.
Technically, she's a cat.
Oh, so cute. That's the best. So cute. I love the multicolor. That's awesome.
It was $20. And then however much the clothes were.
So cute.
Where'd you go to Build-A-Bear at?
Roanoke.
Okay. I didn't know they
We took a little road trip. Also, they have scents now, so you can put a smell in them.
Oh, really? What scent did you choose?
Strawberry.
Oh, good choice. Good choice. She looks like
her name is Alex.
I love it. She's very cute. And I think it's very cute she matches you.
We were at the place and I was like, oh, I'm in a red shirt. Let's put her in a red shirt.
Yeah. It's cute.
I was
Love
also
it.
wearing a baseball cap, and she has one as well. Hold on.
Oh, that's so cute.
I'm 20. Can you tell?
I love it. I love it. Don't grow up too quick. You shouldn't.
Emily, Erin is our club president. She's just an amazing, amazing person.
Oh, jeez.
She does a lot of work on campus that makes it possible for us to do stuff on campus. And we just found out today, Emily, that we got a grant for $1,000 for food to help feed hungry students.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so good and so needed.
I remind my friends about the food box every day.
And Erin, now that we're here, we actually there's mornings we have families waiting at the food box, and it is so humbling.
I'm half tempted to just walk up the hill because I'm right down the hill from y'all and just come up and say, hey.
Come on.
I'll do it. Don't test me. I'll go right now.
Well, yeah, you can't right now because I'm outside and don't have my mask. Yes, but definitely come up tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll try and come tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm off tomorrow. That'd be great. But what we've been doing, everyone, is we've been talking with Emily for the last 2 days because we didn't know we had some terrible technology problems on my end the first day, so I didn't know who would get these calls. So we've recorded them. I'm gonna put them all together into one video and post that. Emily, I thank you so much for your time. You've been so amazing, so encouraging. Yeah, and if you want to, Emily, just I know things we've talked about. Anything else that you wanted to share in your story, share in the type of work that you do? I know with our college students, like I'll tell you one thing that's going on right now is just found out today they're planning a Black Lives Matter rally.
They are.
Saturday, and it's already getting like a lot of people upset. Just thought of doing that. And I know social justice is a very big issue for you. I mean, do you have any advice for college students on how to affect, the areas that they live in areas of social justice, inequality, a lot of feminine inequality and LGBTQ issues? I know there's a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a big question. But it comes back to, I guess, the same kind of issue is we're all just trying to affect change in these areas. How do we do that in ways that it's effective and we see change? It isn't just, I guess, but it's actually seeing things happen. We all want in this space. And so, Roger, just so that I'm on the same page as you, are people upset because it's COVID and gathering people together? Is that why people are upset? Or do you want to tell me a bit about the context?
From what I've seen, Erin is there in the middle of it, so I'll let her share. But from what I've seen on Facebook, they're kind of trying to use that as the reason they're upset, even though the mayor, who's also an employee at the university, has said that the rally is within the COVID restrictions. I tend to think it was more racially motivated. Erin, what do you think?
I mean, people out here wild, and I'm upset about it. Like, I don't know. I feel like people just want to throw a fit over any group of people protesting because, I don't know, they're sad and they don't want to see social changes.
Maybe they're just getting tired because it's been a constant thing for so long.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so I think that is a big part of working for change in social justice. People have this, I think that comes from two things. I think there's stereotypes of people who are activists that we're just trying to cause problems. The whole in Australia, the big thing, you lock yourself to a tree, you're causing an inconvenience for them. The thing with people in power is they aren't used to being inconvenienced and they don't like being inconvenienced. So if a protest is going to be inconvenient for them, it's going to mess with their day, whether that's through sound or taking up a large amount of space in a public area. they get just agitated by that to start with, okay? But it's actually a key that we can use today because we can see that they're agitated. So it's like, okay, well, how do we approach that then in a manner that brings about change? I think you're right in we're having the same kind of issue over here. When the COVID restrictions first began, we was around when the Black Lives Matter protests resurfaced in Australia as well, and we were hearing about George Flynn, but also then we were hearing about Aboriginal people in custody in Australia, and that issue was highlighted through that as well. And that was an issue the year before. I'd spent time with an Aboriginal community, and they told me about their loved ones. And there is one particular story which is very spoken about a lot here in Australia about an Aboriginal boy, and he was in custody, and he was diabetic, and they were prohibiting him from eating because they were saying that he was causing problems in custody. He wasn't doing anything, but he was diabetic, and he could tell he was going to go into a diabetic coma. So he said, "I need to open my pack of biscuits." And they said to him, "If you pick up that pack of biscuits, we're going to have to come in there with our SWAT team because you're causing disruption," even though he was in a cell by himself. Okay. And so he said, "Well, either way, I'm going to die, so I need to try and take the risk and eat these biscuits, or at least have strength to fight." And they turned their cameras off because in Australia, police have to wear cameras. And he was beaten very severely just over a pack of biscuits. There's another story about a woman, Tanya Day. She was an Aboriginal woman in custody. She was just drunk on a train, which, by the way, I've done a million times, and I'm white. It's never been a problem for me. And the police arrested her for being drunk and disorderly. And she fell in the cell and hit her head. She fell off the top bunk. And nobody gave her any medical attention, and she died from that injury months later in hospital. And so there were these issues that are highlighted in our culture as well from these protests. But people were saying to us, "You can't go to these protests. If you go to these protests, we're not going to see you for 2 weeks. You have to quarantine. You can't go to work because of the COVID restrictions, right?" But I went to these protests, and we all wore masks, and we all stood 1.5 meters apart, and it was peaceful. But we were able to stand together and mourn for these families. And I feel like the amount of people that turned up showed that we are bringing change in this area. And so I think that part of advocacy and activism is thinking about effective ways to bring people together, to educate them, to help them understand what someone else's story is. But to do that in a way that is inviting and not agitating is, I think, the key. Particularly when you're working with mayors or politicians, I think that is a key point as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I definitely agree that makes sense.
Yeah.
I hate to take you from topic to topic, but I know that you are on your way to work. When you get there, you got to work. And if you're okay when I post these, Emily, can I attach your social media links so people can find you?
Of course, yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, she has been awesome about answering any questions I've had, and I've really enjoyed it. It's just been so much fun this week.
It has been. Hey, I've enjoyed the conversations we've had too. It's been great.
I'll keep picking on Aaron because I know a little bit of Aaron's story. Would you want to share a little bit about, maybe not much of your stories you feel comfortable, Emily, but just deconstruction in general, why that is maybe a healthy step in faith, or a healthy step in how, I like how you worded that, you're not a fan of organized religion, but yet you still love Jesus.
Yeah, I guess I think deconstruction is a very healthy thing for everyone because you are begin to own who you are as a person and your story and what makes up your experiences and your values. One of the key factors to living a good life is authenticity. And I developed this community development model quite a while ago, but the first step in helping someone is relief work. But relief work is where you're feeding people and you're giving them what they need. And a lot of churches only do that. They just spoon feed people. There's no space for questioning and figuring out which bit of this is right for me and which bit is not right for me. And I think that deconstruction forces you to face the doubts and questions that you've had for a long time, and it helps you face truth and discover truth. I don't think that's ever a bad thing for someone. It's an uncomfortable thing. I love that quote, the truth will set you free, but first it will mess you up. And I think that's very true. Deconstruction is a very messy place because you kind of pull out the rug from under your feet and then you have to figure out what you stand upon again. And that's not an easy thing for anyone to do, especially Erin is so young to be considering a process of deconstruction is quite an overwhelming feeling, and you don't seem to have the tools to know how to deconstruct something that is so deeply, I guess, a part of you. So for me, I grew up in fundamental religion, in evangelicalism, we would call it over here in Australia, in an Anglican church, which is part of the famous Sydney Anglican churches, which are like probably one of the most conservative denominations in Australia. And you know, the sermons went for an hour. We weren't allowed to touch anything. We weren't even allowed to read our Bible in the sermon. We just had to sit and listen to the old white man tell us everything about God. You know, he had a good heart, but I saw from a young age these couples around me that had really unauthentic relationships where there was a lot of difficulty between them and that was denied, and where people were not really willing to confront the difficulties in life. And that was confronted for me when I was quite young. When I was 16, my best friend was killed in a car accident. And so I had to unpack all of these kind of feelings of like, if my friend didn't follow Jesus, which she didn't, then that means she's gone to hell. And then why did he take her and not me? Because I would have gone to heaven because I know him and I said the prayer. You know, and so I had these kind of big experiences from a young age of going, I don't think this is quite right. And I think I deconstructed those to a small amount. Like I remember being still in high school, saying to one of my friends, from today I'm an agnostic, I've forsaken my religion, and feeling like I had some kind of power to myself by doing that. But I would go back to that because I just was aware that I had this inherent feeling of brokenness in my life that I needed to have fixed, and I thought the church was the place that would fix that. So I kept looking for those places in my life where people would feel like, you know, they could sit with me in that and be okay with that. But what I found is the church has never been that place in my life. And actually, maybe I am that place in my life. And maybe the close people I have around me are. Maybe in giving away of yourself, you somehow find healing and liberation in yourself too. But yeah, that's a small amount of, I guess, what that has looked like for me.
Emily, thank you. Now, you guys, I don't want to take up all the time asking the questions. Do you guys have any questions? I didn't know if you want to ask about LGBTQ issues. in Australia. She's talked before about, me and her, we've talked about suicide, talked about, she talked about how she couldn't find healing in the church. She's talked about it in other conversations, how she did find healing. Or if you just want to know cool stuff, like how many tattoos she has. I mean, she'll tell you.
What's your favorite tattoo that you have?
Oh, that's a really hard one. Oh gosh. I feel like it depends on the day and season of my life because they all kind of speak to you in different ways, right? I feel like at the moment maybe probably this one on my leg, which I can't really show you because I'm driving right now, but it's Amy Winehouse. Yeah, it's a portrait. I'll see if I can do a sneaky little leg show.
I love Amy Winehouse. Got it. That's awesome.
I'll send a picture to Roger. And it says, you know that trouble. So for me, I feel like Amy, I've always kind of related to in that she was just searching for a place where she felt like she could be herself, be accepted for that. She had this messed up kind of sense of love as well, and the pressure and expectation of her dad and of being a strong woman in the world, but and her like wild sense of partying and her experiences with men. Like I just relate to her attitude a lot. So yeah, I found this this sketch of her where she's doing her what I call her resting bitch face, and I feel like she's the queen of that. But I find her authenticity very inspiring, but her brokenness very beautiful as well. And I think she really had a lot of talent. And her story also reminds me that there's people in every sector, every area of our life that are experiencing what she has, So there's that one. It's a big one. I love that one. I've got my granddie's name underneath here. You can probably see that, Joy. That's actually her handwriting. And that's how she signed her letter when she ended her life as well. So I have that there, which is really special for me because that's close to my heart as well. And then what else is another favourite of mine? I got a little rainbow on the back of my ankle to keep my rainbow friends close, but also it has a reminder above it. It says, "You can't kill hope." And that was a big realisation for me in deconstruction because I felt like I would say to my friends, I'm done trying to figure this out, I'm done trying to make my life better, I'm going to just accept the status quo, but then the next day hope would rise again in me. And I felt like I couldn't switch that hope off. And so I just reminded myself with that tattoo that you can't kill hope, you can't turn it off, it keeps coming back for some reason. Hope is a big part of mental health recovery, it's a big part of deconstruction, is somehow finding glimmers of hope even in the darkest times. And it sounds so surface level, but there is like a deepness to hope that does keep you going. Just the hope that maybe if you try these things might be a little bit better. Maybe if you do this, maybe it'll just be a little bit better. Sometimes a little bit better is all we need, right? Yeah. What else?
I love how you said it more than once too, is how you can't turn off hope. It just keeps coming back. And I think that in a nutshell is just amazing. And I've thought about that for the last 2 days. I'm going to go back and when I replay these and just keep tweeting things that you say. Good stuff.
Yeah, I think it's true though. So I'm teaching a subject this week at the moment on helping people build what we call self-directed relationships, where they choose the direction that relationship goes in for the goal of recovery. So that's natural and professional supports in mental health work. But one of the biggest components we taught about last week around that was instilling hope in people and how you help people see hope when they feel like they don't have any anymore. It's a big part of, I guess, suicidal ideation and suicide in general is people feel like there is no hope left for them. The world would actually be a better place without them. And that's really when you're pretty hopeless. So it's important for us to know how to have those conversations to help people see, even if they're living for the TV series they're watching for the next episode, or because they know their dog needs them, or do you know what I mean? Whatever it is that keeps someone alive, that gives them hope, sometimes that's all they need, right? For me, that's always been my little boy. I know that he needs his mummy around. Like I have had a very present reminder for me during my whole recovery and deconstruction journey that a little boy needs his mum, you know. So I didn't feel like there was an option for me to really consider that. So yeah. But other people, I guess, don't have children. So what is it for them that keeps them going when life is dark, you know? It's about, I guess, helping them see that. I think the other thing is we get kind of freaked out when people talk about ending their life. They talk about considering suicide. But it's actually quite common, and it's actually understandable when you consider people's circumstances. So, like, when somebody doesn't want to wake up the next day, you can understand why they would consider that. And I think we freak out so much about it. But it is actually an option people do consider more than we think, you know. Not saying that it's a right thing, but I'm just saying people need to be heard in that space too. Pardon me. Spring allergies.
And Emily was sharing with me earlier in the week that suicide is a large cause of death in Australia, and I know it's something that with the university and just students in general, probably everyone knows someone, and just it's been some really good insights that she starts talking about finding reasons to give them hope. So, and I really do. I appreciate that. I appreciate you speaking to that too. What are some other issues or questions you guys may have for Emily? Don't everybody jump at wall at once. Well, okay, or we can go more candid. She can tell you how many tattoos she has. I was just saying. Anybody want to guess?
I only have one, so I'm very jealous that you have more than one.
Tell me about your one.
I got it with my former best friend. It's an A. It's in her handwriting because both of our names started with A. So that's my handwriting is on her forever, and hers is on mine, and now we're not talking.
Oh, that's painful. That's like a big
real anyway. So.
Yeah. Tattoos are so permanent.
Yeah.
When I got a cover up done on my hand recently of a cross that I got from when I was in church, and I tried to get this tattoo artist to fix it for me. It made it worse, and I was like, nah, man. I'm like, I've got to get it covered. So I buried it in flowers, and I never actually thought to get my whole hand covered. But then I was like, oh, I need this covered up. I can't stare at it all day. It's on my hand. I can't cover it with something. So that was my decision to do. And I'm so glad I did, because I actually really like it now. It's it's buried in flowers, and it reminds me that I bury my religion, and I can walk away from that. And that's been a really positive thing for me to remember. So yeah, it's funny. You can find ways of covering them up if you really get over them. I'm working on one of a couple of my pieces at the moment, because I'm kind of just over them. This butterfly right here. It's pretty, but I'm I stare at it all the time, and I'm bored of it. So I'm going to add some watercolor to that, and then I've got this kind of long strand here of a caterpillar turned into a butterfly, the symbols of metamorphosis and change in life.
Mhm.
But again, I'm a bit bored of it too. Like, I'm like, yeah, it was cute at the time, but what do I do with it now? So I'm working on that one as well. So you can always add to things and take away from things via laser if you really want to, but laser wasn't something I wanted to consider because it takes so long as well. It's like a year process of constantly fixing it. So
Yeah. At least I can just be like, yep, it's for Aaron. I'm a narcissist. I got a tattoo of my own initial.
Hey, people do that all the time. Like, people often get very narcissistic tattoos. So yeah, I've seen some funny ones in the tattoo shops that I've been in. So yeah.
One of my friends in Ireland has like 3 or 4 tattoos of sharks.
Like sharks? Is there a significance to that?
Loves sharks.
Oh, cool. That's really cool. Yeah, that's fun. I think they're a lot of fun.
And Emily, I know that poetry writing has been something you've done to kind of help you in the healing process, and I've shared some poetry with students, some of your poetry. What are some things that you could recommend to help people, maybe to kind of to center, or to kind of just a way to help themselves find peace? Do you have any kind of meditation practices or anything you do?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a few things I do. So whenever I'm talking about mental health recovery or deconstruction, a big part of mental health recovery is often medication. That's great. But also, I talk about us having our 3 medications that we do that are actually activities or hobbies or things that bring life back to us. So the way that the brain works when you experience trauma, and religious trauma is a big part of deconstruction, so it's actually just as significant as any other trauma. It's the idea, religious trauma is kind of the idea that people have told you, if you don't believe these things, the rest of your life you'll be tortured for, that everything's going to go bad for you, and they've told you what to believe, so you're not being able to shape your own worldview, which is a big part of a person's development and important part of life. And so walking away from that means that you have to face that trauma. And so your brain, the way the brain works is changed by trauma. We go into this concept called fight or flight, or freeze. And so they're our reactions. And we have to teach the brain how to do other things again, to take away from that area of the brain that's lighting up. So if we were to do like a scan on the brain, you would see that those fight, flight, freeze areas are what's lighting up for someone that has experienced trauma. So to take away from that, we do things like cognitive activities, which is involved around things like organization again. So quite often you'll find somebody that's experienced trauma is late to activities because they struggle with time management, forgets when things are due, all of those kind of things. And so it's about us figuring out again, okay, so how do we manage this to the best of our ability so that we can live a productive life again? So planning how we organize our life again. Things like yoga was a big part of healing for me, because yoga taught me how to be present in my body again and how to feel emotions, which is something religion had taken away from me. And so how to know when something feels right or wrong to you is an important part of recovery. And so yoga taught me that. Yoga is best if it's done with someone who's trauma informed, because the first term I ever did yoga, I pretty much just slept the whole term in her classes, because I had really bad insomnia because I was super hyper vigilant all the time and I couldn't sleep. And so what I found was that yoga wound me down enough to get some sleep. So I would go into her class, she would say, do this. I would do the meditation and I would fall asleep for an hour. And I thought, oh my God, I'm wasting all this money. But it was actually what my body needed. So I was giving my body that. Another thing, I don't know how much you guys have the ocean close to you or beaches close to you, but but where I live, I'm very blessed in that way. And so cold water swimming is really good to rewire and heal the brain because it provides a sense of shock for the body again. So I would go in the middle of winter and throw myself into freezing cold water until my body felt like it could survive, and then I'll get back out because it would shock my body out of experiences where I had gone into shock and I needed to come out of that. That was another big part of that for me. Writing was a big part because it was about me finding my voice again, writing my story, but quite often it was just writing out what I needed to in terms of poetry, and I did that a lot over the period of the first year that I left church. Slowly, I started to talk publicly about what had happened because the situation with me leaving church, people kind of knew about, but it was shushed and pushed under the rug. And then people were like, well, what really happened a bit later? So then I was very public about the fact that I had left and I wasn't planning on returning to a church. And I felt like I started to find a tribe of people that felt the same. And that was really healing too, because it was like, oh, I'm not crazy, which is what they had told me. You know, I'm not wrong in thinking this. There are so many people that are leaving this institution and don't want to be part of it anymore. And it's not a bad thing. Like, we can actually do that. We can choose to do that. Like, I have choice again in my life. Like, you know, I can choose who I want to spend time with. I can walk away from places where I'm not valued, you know, those kind of things. All of that takes time, but I've also had two really good mental health professionals that have done that journey with me. One of them is my GP, who's created a medical practice where he specializes in mental health, but how mental health and trauma affects women. And so I see him once a fortnight and he's wonderful. And then I have a trauma-informed psychologist who is bloody amazing, like one of the best in Australia. And he's in my hometown, so I'm pretty lucky and he's wonderful. So I think those things are my kind of recipe for what's worked for me. But you kind of have to just find what works for you. And when you find it, you go, oh, that's working for me. Sometimes you got to give it a couple tries, but you got to let yourself trust your body that it will respond when you give it the right medicine. So I found whenever I wrote, I felt lighter afterwards. So that was a key to me, that was important for me. I felt like I had to get words out. I don't feel that same urge to write as much anymore. I more center my writing around academic work and educating people these days. But at that point in my life, I had to write all the time. And so I listened to that and I just let myself write. And then I would feel lighter afterwards. So I recommend that if that's something that you feel like. Maybe, Roger, that could be something you do as an online community, is just like pick up a pen and see what needs to come out of you. You know, like that's all I ever did. I had friends that were wonderful poets, and they just said to me, that's all I ever did when I learned how to write poetry. And so I just did that myself too. Yeah.
But that is a really, really good idea, Emily. I know that Erin's an artist, and she draws a lot and doodles, and her drawings are really good. She actually drew something. It was really funny. She drew something she wasn't supposed to draw on. It was like the lid of a Tupperware bowl or something. I still got that somewhere.
Yeah, it was a thing that, like, you guys had done. You had done like care packages for Red Door, and you like stored some stuff in like a little container, and I drew a self-portrait on there.
Yeah,
oh, that's so cute.
Got that.
That's so cute. That's awesome.
Now you have my memory when I leave.
Well, you, Erin, should keep doing that. If drawing is a thing for you, if art is a thing, creativity is a really good process for rewiring the brain. So I highly recommend that. I just got to put my lipstick on because I've just arrived at work.
Yeah, I've been doing art and stuff since I was like a little kid, so it's been one of my big coping mechanisms.
Yeah, keep doing that, Erin. It's like feeding your soul. It's bringing your soul back to life. That's what you need to do. I feel like we're told to be and live in ways that are unnatural to us all the time. We have to learn to not do those things, you know?
Yeah.
And art is a way that brings us back to life and reality again.
Let me see if I have my sketchbook with me. I did some stuff for a character that I'm doing in D&D.
I was getting ready to say, I know that you don't not have it with you.
It's in my clear backpack. I have to check.
I'm going to have to go because I'm at work and I've got to jump on another Zoom.
Yeah.
Emily, thank you so
have a
much.
good day at
Students,
work.
please stay on. This has been wonderful, Emily. Maybe we can catch up again later
that'd
on.
be fun.
Yeah, I'd love that. That would be great.
Black Hair and Bangs.
Hey, you have a great day at work and have a good time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. See ya.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.